it was cool to see where they looked like Survivor Series was over and we had the copyright notice and looks like they're going off the air. And then they hit CM Punk's theme song in Chicago. He set all kinds of merch records. By the way, I've never seen it reported correctly based on the numbers and the words that I've heard. I've seen people say lots of inaccurate stuff. Let me just say, he sold more than that. It was bigger than you've heard. Probably shouldn't say anything more than that, but it's unbelievable the run that WWE's had, and CM Punk setting a merch record in an hour on a Black Friday weekend is just unbelievable. And here we are now. We find ourselves at the end of 2023, and there's talk of WWE potentially eliminating house shows from some of the C and D counties, is the way it was phrased. The Raw TV deal is still up for grabs. You got to think they're just waiting for the right time and place to announce something really big there. AEW looks like, they're going to be battling for television rights and figuring out what 2025 looks like for them. So we'll discover that over the next year, and we'll see what's really going on with Warner Brothers Discovery in this WWE partnership. There's one last thing to discuss that was in the Observer this past week. We've made it this whole time without a ton of Observer talk, but here's the report from Dave Meltzer. I want to get your reaction. The new WWE ownership is not Vince McMahon, so the attempt to get brand exclusivity on stations may not be there. UFC's contract with ESPN was negotiated by the same people doing the key negotiations for Raw right now. PFL, a rival promotion, was also able to get on ESPN and ESPN Plus, and PFL just renewed that deal. It's believed the CW deal for NXT also didn't call for exclusivity in the wrestling genre. Whether WBD would want two wrestling franchises is a different matter. In theory, they could put one on TBS and another on TNT, but even on the same channel, like ESPN does for MMA or Fox does for football, but my hunch is very strong that WBD will end up with one wrestling franchise in 2025. Yet another aspect going on is that WBD CEO David Zaslav met with Paramount Global CEO Bob Bakish on 12/19 to discuss a potential merger between the two companies. This could even more change the flow of any wrestling negotiation and puts major deals on hold. The belief is that if such a deal goes through, Max and Paramount Plus could wind up combining. What do you think of that?
I think Dave Meltzer is a master of reporting the obvious. There's a whole lot of words for saying absolutely nothing. There was a meeting.
Yep.
Interesting, but that was widely known. There's a potential merger that's widely known within the industry. The fact that all deals are on hold would be like common freaking sense. No news there. Nothing Dave said was news. It's an observation. It's going to be it. What's odd about that is, and again, I don't understand enough about Paramount's business structure to speak to too much of this. But my visceral response is, wow, this is weird, because if there's a merger, Paramount's probably going to eat Warner Brothers just based on scope, who's bigger. But Paramount's in bad shape. So I don't know. It's such a fascinating time that my limited experience actually in the television industry, even at a high level, I don't have a clue what's going to happen.
That's what makes it fun to me.
And I don't think anybody else does either. This is like the wild, wild west.
It's going to be interesting to see, how it all shakes out and what's next for wrestling in 2024, just the entire industry as a whole. But I guess we should talk about, as we're sort of putting a button on 2023, do you have some MVPs on either side, whether it's WWE or AEW, and what do you think the biggest story of 2023, when we look back on 2023, 10 years from now, what will be the biggest story, and who will we point to and say, boy, that was their year where they really leveled it up?
I think the biggest story of 2023, and we don't know this, and we won't know this for a while yet, But if indeed WWE ends up on WBD and AEW isn't, CM Punk will be the story of this year. And the drama behind it, and the fact that Tony let him go. Allow the situation to rise to the point where he had no choice but to let him go. That would be a more accurate way of saying it. This situation could have been avoided with leadership and management from the get-go, and not fanboy Tony, as it relates to Punk and his management of Punk in the situation. That's going to be, like I mentioned earlier, how Stone Cold Steve Austin and Chris Jericho continue to haunt me. Losing Punk to, and not that Punk is any more important than Cody Rhodes, by the way. The difference is WBD's obvious interest in Punk. This will literally be, if it happens, and I'm not hoping it happens, but if it happens, and WWE ends up on WBD and AEW ends up looking for a new television home, and Tony Khan handed CM Punk to WWE on a silver platter, along with Cody and along with Jade, that'll be the story of that'll be the biggest story for the next 5 or 10 years in terms of inside baseball.
Isn't it interesting to think about too? And I know you don't think about it this way, but it's sort of reminiscent of AEW and Ring of Honor to me. Like Ring of Honor failed to lock down Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks to a contract. And on the New Japan side, they failed to lock down Kenny Omega. And Tony Khan was able to pull all that talent together after the success of All In and the success of their merchandise sales in the mainstream and things like Hot Topic. And Tony was able to just take really successful talent from somewhere else that had gotten hot somewhere else and just create his own thing. A few years later, it does feel like Cody, Punk, Cargill, he's losing a few of those same people who he helped get hot again. They're going somewhere else. It's interesting. It's full circle.
Yep. Whole lot of full circle going on.
Well, let's do a few real quick. Do you think we'll see Cody Rhodes dethrone Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, or will it be something else?
I hope so. I mean, I can't predict. I don't know. I hope so, just because I want it for him. And I think the fans want it for him.
Yes.
I think the timing is as right as it's ever going to be. So I hope so.
Do you think AEW has a TV deal at the end of next year? 1 year from today, does AEW have a TV deal somewhere?
Yes.
1 year from today, where do you think we'll know Raw's going? Just guess.
WBD.
Do you think there'll be another surprise move in talent from WWE to AEW or AEW to WWE? Do you think
I think there will, but I think there will be, but not at the level that we've been seeing. There's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of velocity in terms of talent bouncing back and forth, relatively speaking, over the last year. I don't think that there's anybody that's of a significant enough level that'll reach the CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, even Jade Cargill. Jade, just because she has so much potential. She's an unproven commodity at this point. We don't know what she's going to deliver.
Right.
But if you had to bet, I would bet heavily on her. She just reeks of charisma. She has charisma oozing out of pores you could only see with a microscope. She's so charismatic and obviously beautiful and a physical specimen on top of it. So providing she can work reasonably well and she can master a narrative, she could be the next Rock if she wanted to be. And she's in the right environment. Not overnight, but if she can learn and rise to the level of her potential and learn, much like Rock did, Rock learned how to become a great actor within the confines of WWE. Certainly he had to learn more and get different experiences and so forth, but his foundation was built in WWE. Jade Cargill's can be too, over time, not overnight, but over time, so that she can make that transition when that transition makes sense for her. And I think that's the potential that Jade represents, but she's an unproven commodity at this point. But I don't think there's not that many people that will have that kind of impact that are, vulnerable for a brand change, company change.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.